1973, the Frelimo liberation leader of Mozambique, and that is Samora Machel, had this to say, and I quote, that the empowerment of women should not be seen as an act of humanitarian conformity, but rather as a necessity for any revolution to succeed, but also for it to be sustained over a long period of time. That, in its essence, was only trying to tell us that the roles of women are so fundamental in terms of transforming society. And many other great leaders have said so many things about how women are important, Nelson Mandela, among others. So today, as we celebrate International Women's Day, viewers, I'm joined by a panel of distinguished ladies, young ladies of this society, and this episode is, cut out for them specifically. And I'll just introduce them in a bit, and in no particular order. Angel Nalumansi, from the extreme left of this panel, is a content and community leader at Boda. So as we speak about women in technology, we have Angel right there. Angel, thank you for being on the show, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here.
All right, thank you. Like I said, in no particular order, in the middle of the pack is Piloya Nyeko, who is a student of law at Uganda Christian University. I also know that she's a student leader at the same institution, but also a youth leader at Omoro district. Piloya, thank you for making the time to be here for the second time.
Well, thank you so much. Happy Women's Day to the viewers out there. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone upon the water to create many ripples. We need the men, and a happy Women's Day.
Oh, very interesting. That's why I'm here, because we need the men. Yes, next to Piloya is Namara Ruth, who is a communications lead at Unbounded Associates. Ruth, thank you for spending the time to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be on this show to discuss such a passionate topic of the day, and happy Women's Day to all the women out there.
Wow, thank you. Yes, next to Piloya, next to myself is Susan Owomugisha, who is also a student of law at Uganda Christian University. Susan, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for hosting me. I'm very glad to be part of the show. Happy Women's Day to everyone. Thank you.
All right. Let me see who to begin with. Ruth, let me start with you.
Thank you.
As we commemorate this particular day, it's celebrated not just here in Uganda, but across the world. I don't know, what is significant about this day to you as a person? Is it a day worth celebrating each and every single year? Should you commit taxpayers' money every year to putting up tents somewhere? Now this year we're in Chirohura putting up tents and all these things. Is it worthy annual celebration? Has it lost meaning, or it still holds so much value?
Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting me alongside amazing ladies. Women's Day is such a significant day in our lives, in the lives of women and girls. And particularly for me, that this day means that as the world, as a country, as a nation, as a community, as a society, we get to, rethink and get time to refocus on a woman, on a girl child, and, thinking deeply about the role we play in society and how that can be respected, how that can be enhanced, and to ensure that, yes, our contribution to society as women, as girls is recognized, but also bearing in mind some of the existing challenges around us and how different actors can get to address those to ensure that, yes, indeed, we are celebrating the women and we are enjoying our rights, privileges, and responsibilities to ensure that we are also contributing to the general wider society development. Thank you.
All right. Barbra.
Yes.
Let's speak about the legal framework just for a bit. The small law I know is that Uganda is a signatory to, for example, the Maputo Protocol, which is around the rights of women. We have an entire Article 33, which still speaks about the rights of women. So it looks like Uganda's legislative framework recognizes the need to empower women. So the question is, first of all, is there any insufficiency in the law? But also, is the law being actualized? Is Article 33 on the rights of women, does it translate into what we see today? Like rights generally, the right to education, the right to health, the right to all these things. Does Article 33, is it in force?
Thank you so much. Now, Article 33, we are to relate to when the International Day was actually in place, we see that these women sat and they had issues that they wanted to address. And throughout the charters that actually came in to address such challenges. Now, that also led to the Article 33 that brings about the rights of women in the Constitution, that yes, women have to be considered that women are supposed to be equal. Women are not supposed to be discriminated against. But the question now comes in that yes, as we celebrate this day today, are there loopholes? That was the question, yeah.
Yeah.
Now you realize that as this legal framework is brought about, are the women in position to make those laws? Are they put into consideration when these laws are brought about? Look at even when you zero down to the maybe the local government. Let me go as far as that. That you will see that yes, the women have assumed positions these days, and they've actually come out to be outstanding. Women are the perpetrators of the law at times themselves, yet most times the law is against them and they actually support it. So Article 33 is coming to say that yes, as the women, we are equal and we are supposed to uplift and to live up to that equality. Probably.
Yeah. All right. Let me still keep on the legal aspect because I have two lawyers here. Susan, if you look at the way our courts have arbitrated on some of these issues regarding the rights of women, I'll take you to the landmark decision of the case of Mifumi on I think was it the Succession Act or the aspect of female genital mutilation, all right, which was declared unconstitutional. So the question is still on the legal framework. Is the legislation is it a step towards the right direction? That is one. Two, is that if you look at the way courts interpret the law, are they doing so in a way that they are cognizant that there is a disenfranchised group of society, which is the women, and therefore, as we interpret these laws, we must be cognizant of the fact that they need special attention and special empowerment. So still on the legal perspective, is there a lacuna or we are progressing very well in our jurisprudence?
Thank you very much. So, well, that will first take me back to our cultures and backgrounds, whereby we see that different cultures have different beliefs. While we see people actually believe in female genital mutilation, but is it fair, or is it a culture that we should look at having as we females? So I feel like the law coming into play has actually played a great role to cut down these cultures that are actually detrimental to a girl child.
Yeah.
So I feel the law has been in place, but there is one thing, there is the law being in position, and also there is an enforcement.
Okay.
So I feel we need to actually strengthen our legislature. That's what calls for Women's Day. Now you see with the Women's Day that we celebrate every other day, it helps to empower our women. It helps to remind them of their duty. Are we doing anything when it comes to the legislature? Are we part of the decision making? If we are in court and a decision is going to be taken, are they considering a panel of 5 judges, or all the 5 will be male judges? So I think it's something that we need to look at when it comes to enforcement and doing away with these cultural barriers that are in place. I think we need to actually have in our laws, have these cultural leaders be involved in when it comes to decision making, or actually in the making of the law, because we see that at the end of it all, we shall have the law in place, but when you go back down to those villages that actually promote these kinds of cultures, they'll still not take it. They'll feel like you're actually encroaching on their culture. So I feel we need to have these cultural leaders take part when it comes to time for making decisions as the law. So I feel that's a loophole that we need to fill.
Wow, very interesting. Angel, obviously I'm coming to you. And the concern still is around, for example, you look at the political landscape of this country. The women have continuously been included. Today, our cabinet is 43% of women. Parliament, at least every district has a woman member of parliament. To the extent that in a recent by-election, we saw a woman contesting in a directly elective constituency. The vice president of this country, the prime minister. I mean, there are all these women who are in these political powerful positions. So the question is, as we're here to commemorate International Women's Day, as the political rise of women in this country, does it translate into things like access to maternal health? All right? Does it translate into things like zero tolerance or an end to teenage pregnancies? Does it translate into ending gender-based violence? So what is the correlation between women empowerment in politics vis-a-vis the grassroots issues that we still witness today?
Well, first of all, my understanding of Women's Day is a time for us to celebrate the women that have made it politically, like celebrate all their efforts. Yeah. So kudos to all the women in the political spheres. But does it come down to the individual person? Does it come down to the youth out there? Does it help solve our issues? So I don't subscribe to the notion that, oh, because this person is a lady, we should have these issues resolved. Yes, it is expected of them, but again, it comes back to the individuals themselves. So personally, I take it back to families, because if you've grown up in a family that has gender-based violence, in one way or another, it's going to catch up with you. It's going to catch up with you, and you'll be violent. Really, we have kids that are violent because that is what they've grown up seeing. So it has nothing to do with, oh, we have so and so in power. Yes, they'll do what they can, but still, it goes back to family. It goes back to the gender roles and distribution of roles and responsibilities, because we see that the men do the productive gender roles, and then the women are given the reproductive gender roles, because for some reason it's like we have a cooking gene with us as we are born. No, because if you see families today, when you have a boy child and a girl child, somehow the kid has come from playing soccer and they're telling him, don't worry, Angel is going to cook for you. You get, and then they're having a problem with Angel that is on her phone the whole time. Why are you on the phone the whole time? But because that is how the roles and responsibilities have been allocated, and it doesn't translate to what we see later today, because most of the best chefs in the world are male. But somehow families, the gender reproductive and productive roles have been divided. So it comes back to how you train up a child. Because the girls that get the teenage pregnancies, it's not, oh, I went and got pregnant. There's a man. So what, that man was not groomed or nurtured in a way to know that, you know what, this girl is young. Don't bother with this girl. This girl is young. So I take it back to family, really.
Yeah.
Family.
Yeah, I agree, because you're speaking like Karl Marx. Karl Marx had such strong sentiments that everything begins and falls the family. But my point here is that we must hold our leaders accountable. That as a woman who has managed to rise up to the level of vice president, you know better the issues of menstrual health. You know better the issues that come with maybe getting pregnant at a very early age. So you should know better. And when you get to such offices, you should be a voice to advocate. I think it was last week or the week before where we saw the woman MP in Kenya who decided to put on her trouser and put on a red mark to demonstrate and show that, you know, the rights of these young girls who are going through these menstrual cycles, right? So the point is that leaders, I mean, to whom much is given, much is expected. So we cannot just let our leaders off the hook. So I don't know, Ruth, should the leaders be in position to play a much, and in this I mean the female leaders, should they be in position to play a much more bigger role?
Yes, I really agree with you on the point of holding leaders accountable, because it takes a community to raise these girls and empower and uplift these women. And what that means is that they stand as a representation of the many that they've left behind. And what that means is that, yes, you've left behind women and girls that probably do not have a platform to raise their voice, to use their voice to talk about issues that affect them. And, we single out these women that have gotten the opportunity and the platform to amplify these voices. And somehow, yes, while we have registered quite a number of them at that level, I feel that we are yet to see that success, to see that achievement translate into the empowerment, to see that uplifting that we want to see, and get down to this young girl that has aspirations, to this young woman that also envisions a society where this person or this woman is feels represented, or feels that they have an opportunity to also contribute to society. So yes, we are let down on that sphere, because when some of these women get to these spaces, they actually abandon.
Yeah, they forget.
They forget the women and young girls they've left behind, and which is quite a very big disappointment and disheartening. That yes, we need to rethink our roles when we get to these spaces. We need to rethink our purpose and how we get to give back to the people that actually supported us to get to these spaces. And what does that mean? Because this young girl feels betrayed, that they expect much from these leaders, but this is not coming back. And I appreciate the fact that, yes, we live in a scarcity of resources, but even the little that we have has been mismanaged. I feel so disappointed that we have women at the center of the Karamoja Iron Sheets scandal. What does that mean? And what does that reflect? And what is it teaching the young women and the young girls? So a young girl out there that wants to be in a similar position would be like, oh, so this is an opportunity and a space for me to, So I feel that we need to get back to the drawing board and redefine what these spaces mean for us who are in these spaces and for the people that we represent.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Because, and I want to agree with you, because, we grew up believing, or we are told, that women make better managers. And I agree, when you cited the issue of Karamoja, it's I don't know, it's an indictment on the capacity of women to actually, offer genuine and transformative leadership. But well, of course, I'll give you a chance, Susan, to comment on the issue of political empowerment of women and whether it translates to addressing the issues that are there at the grassroots. But as you do that, do you feel that for so long, the perpetrators of all this injustice against the women, like teenage pregnancies, like early child marriages and all these things, gender-based violence, are actually the men? So as we have these conversations around women empowerment, do you think that the men have been left out and that it's high time we brought them on the table and had these conversations with them?
Well, thank you. So it will take me back to gender equality. So it's one thing for us to actually advocate for gender equality, and it's one thing to accept that we are never going to be equal. Then, therefore, we should actually advocate for gender equity. What am I trying to say? Now, we see that for so long, in these many years that have come up, we have tried to empower the woman. But as we are empowering the woman, we are forgetting that young boy that is in the village. So what is going to happen, let's say 5 years from now? The lady that we have empowered is going to be up there. So we shall have the men that are very low. So at the end of it all, we are trying to solve a problem, but we shall still have a problem. That is why I come in and say, why not have equal footing? Whereby as we are lifting girl child, let the man also be taught how they're supposed to treat this lady. So it should not actually be one-centered. Just like we have had radical feminists. Let me actually groom this lady to be superior than the man. I feel it is in a way befitting our society if we still have such kinds of mindset. We need to actually have people who are not only looking at their selfish interests, but at the interests of the society. If you are saying you want the society to be a better place for everyone, why then want to improve only one particular center of agenda? So to me, I would feel it is better while you are uplifting this girl's child who is going through a menstrual pain. Look at this young boy who has also been brought up in a setting, poor background. Even the men face problems, of course, because the women have been groomed up to know that we are a weak sex. Even in ourselves, it befits the way we want to come out. It limits the competition. You find a lady will just sit there because they know at the end of it all, they will go to compete for our spaces. Now we have had different organizations, of course, thinks they employ only females. But what is it going to bring up in the future? We are going to have men who are actually not employed. So at the end of it all, you'll find we are having problems within the society. Yet to me, I feel while we are uplifting this woman, then look at also the man. Let us have them in our spaces. Because if we are leaving out the perpetrators, then what are we trying to solve? Let us have all of them at the same table. We discuss the issues that are affecting all of us. Because at the end of it all, we are looking at developing the society, right? We are not looking at developing a certain gender so that they groom or they become better than the other. I feel that is where we are lacking. We find that this sector wants to be more higher than the other. But I feel if we are to develop as a nation, as a country, let us all want to develop each other at the same footing, which is actually very hard. But I think it can be done. As we are putting energy to groom the woman, know that you can actually invest your power into innovation. You can do better in business. You can do better in education. Let the gentleman also know that they have the same space and they can compete favorably. That will take me to wanting to look at the women. Let us give them very many opportunities. In a way, it affects them as a gender because I'll feel I don't have to do a lot. At the end of it all, I already have it. I have to sit back. I'll just step in an office and be like, hey, you know I'm a weak sex. I can compete favorably. If a woman and a man appeared on the same panel, they would feel maybe the lady can actually do better. And after all, we are trying to empower them. And I feel it's encouraging a lot of laziness among us as women. So let the spaces be equal. Let us compete favorably. Let us have men on these panels so that they get to know that actually causing gender-based violence is not okay. And we can work on it as both genders, not as one gender. Because if we are to have these kinds of conversations with only ladies, then how are the men going to get the information?
But I'm here.
Yeah, but since you're here, you can actually take the information. So I feel inclusivity is very key and it's urgent. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Brilliant submission. Barbara, just to pick it up from where she has stopped, is that the argument of complacency, that the more you know that there is an extra advantage that you're going to be accorded, then you're going to be complacent, or if I'm to use our words, lazy. But if we are to be cognizant of the reality of society, is that, okay, I don't know how to say it, but women were actually perceived to be weak. And in that sense, they actually became weak. They became a weaker sex rather, in society. In so many ways, economically, socially, and. So is Susan's argument running away from the reality that women are actually disempowered and they need these affirmative actions? They need the extra 1.5 points to qualify for university education. I don't know, where do you fall in that argument? Are you for affirmative action, or you think that her argument is right and that men and women should be at equal footing to compete favorably?
Thank you so much for that brilliant submission. I picked a little more from her submission. That you see, I don't think women need to be at the same pace with the men where it is at this point. But I think there are a certain group of women that need to be put at that level. look at the rural setting. There is that woman there. There is that young girl there who still does not have the access to information, does not have the access to the to the sanitary parts, cannot even afford. So are you going to treat that woman the same way you're treating this woman, this lady who has been so much empowered, who has been built up, a father who believes in her and says that you can make it, everything is there for her? Are you going to put them at the same pace? So to me, I think it is not. We are not supposed to put them at the same level, but we should subject them according to the circumstance which they are in. Then let us look at this area. Let us empower them, because then if we are going to put everything at the same pace for even a person who is in the urban setting, then you are going to over empower these, and the other person may end up being at a disadvantaged level. So how about we totally concentrate on the empowerment of those that have not yet come to this level, and when we achieve that, then we now strive to make it at the same pace. So let us zero down. My argument is, let us go back and zero down to these other areas where where the girls, the women are not yet empowered, for them to achieve. Now, my other argument is that when you look at the education system, the 1.5 that is actually given to the ladies at the university, of course, that is public universities. Why do I need the 1.5? I am not saying I am equal to a man, but I'm saying that what a man can do, I can do better. I am not saying that I can actually do better in bed or somewhere else, but I'm saying in some other aspects, I can do better. I can reason the way you do. In any case, that is why they would advise a woman, you have to get married to a man who is probably 5 years above you. Why? Because they believe that our level of intelligence is quite, IQ is quite higher than that of a man. I don't know, that is a discussion for another day. But that entails that we are actually somewhere. We are actually at the same pace. We're not equal in our abilities, but we are equal in our capacities. So what you can do, I can do. Empower me where I can do better. But if it is for something that we can do, let equality and equity prevails. That is my argument about that.
All right. Angel, your opinion about the 1.5. Is it encouraging academic laziness? Or is it something that we actually need to put the girls through school so as to encourage them, to motivate them that, hey, look here, just persist, with all these society disenfranchisement that you're going through, just persist. After all, at the end of the day, there's a price for you. So where do you fall in this argument? Are you on the side of Susan, who says that, you know what, we must be at an equal footing, or what Barbra is saying?
Well, I also subscribe to the notion that says it breeds laziness.
Okay, tell us how.
No, because girls, I was in a single-sex school, and someone would be very relaxed, and they're calculating how they're going to get that course at university, and they're like 1.5. Then if I get this in math, and if I get this in econ, I'll do economics. You get? Like someone is already calculating. They're not reading hard because they know I have those points, and then I can add on what I can add on. So I believe it breeds laziness of some sort. I don't know. It builds an inferiority complex in some girls, because some of us are overthinkers. Or start to think, why are they doing that for me? And there's some of us that have exaggerated self-belief. You believe you can do anything. So when someone tells you they're giving you 1.5 for free, you get so disturbed. Why? You get so to some extent it brings laziness, that's for sure. Anyone in a single-sex school can attest to this. When we are calculating, we add the 1.5 to see how we're going to get the course we want at the university. Yeah, so but then also it breeds inferiority complex, and then which should not be a thing, really. And
friends, I think I hold a different opinion, because I think that the 1.5 affirmative action is actually very, very important. In fact, it is why today we see that Makerere University has a larger female population than the men. When you look at, for example, Makerere University and their intake for the past 2 academic years, it indicates that they now register more women or more females joining the university than the men. So what this, and personally I want to attribute this that to certain deliberate actions taken. For example, I insist that the 1.5 affirmative action has played an instrumental role in terms of encouraging women to pursue education at the highest level. Because when you know that there is something for you at the end of the day, then I believe that psychologically you'll be motivated to even work much more harder. Contrary to the belief that you're saying that, it will instead encourage complacency, I think that a woman would actually feel more embarrassed if they got only 18 points, even when they were given an extra 1.5. Like, imagine you fail to join university, even when you have extra 1.5. I think that contrary to the belief that it breeds complacency, I think, in fact, it motivates a woman or a girl child to work harder. But that be it as it may, as we evaluate the education system, the dropout rate still it must be of concern to us. So I'll give you a chance to make your final comments on that 1.5 affirmative action, and I pick from Ruth as well. So do you still insist that the 1.5 is long overdue? It should be scrapped off?
Well, I believe it's long overdue, but as much it has its advantages and disadvantages. However, I don't think we should look at it as the sole reason as to why we have women in these universities, because there are very many reasons why these girls are not getting into these universities. And so instead of us focusing on, oh, we gave them a point, how come they are still not making it? There are other things. There are some girls that have to stop studying at senior 6 and get married. It's very common today. Like Okuze, get married, we need money, we need our value back. And then there are girls that have to take care of their siblings, and then somehow they can't balance school and work. So that is how they just decide to not continue. And then girls have been, their minds have been switched to the whole, oh, you have to get married off to a rich man. So some even don't see why they should go to school. So I think we should, instead of focusing on, oh, the 1.5, let's focus on all these other issues that are making girls not to continue to university: early pregnancies, drug abuse, family beliefs and traditions, forced marriages, early marriages, teenage pregnancies, all those.
Yeah.
I think we should focus our energies to that. And then about the MP you said that had to paint her pants, imagine she had directed that energy into teaching girls in her constituency how to make rewashable sanitary towels. I think that would yield more results as compared to the match, but it was a good one.
Yeah. Ruth.
I love that discussion because it's taking us to systems. I pick it up from the point of the education system. How about we rethink how our education system is structured and whether it is actually doing service to our children, to the young girls, to the women? Because I feel...
Oh, can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
Just before I forget, is that we aren't focusing only on the 1.5 that is given to the girl child after finishing senior 6. Even as they join senior 1, you will appreciate that, for example, King's College Boda will take, for men, okay, for the boy child, they will stop at maybe 4. For the girls, they'll go up maybe 6. There's always that affirmative action cognizance that is there. Even at advanced level education, as they admit, they will try to see how to favor. So I think it grows, like it cuts across all the education levels. So, but yeah.
Yes, I really appreciate efforts towards affirmative action, but I feel that we need to rethink our education system. That we have a system that provides an enabling environment that bears in mind the gender aspect and, the challenges, the roles and aspects that come along with being a girl or with being a female or male. That, okay, does the education system bear in mind that once a girl child is growing up, this is what they go through. This is what they face, and bearing also in mind the kind of culture setup, the family setup, and their role towards the education of a child. That at the end of the day, this has a bearing on the outcomes of education and how the different gender is going to go through the system. So I feel that yes, again we've been let down, that children or girls and boys have been thrown in the jungle to fend for themselves. That yes, as government, yes, you've put the 1.5, but you've not created an environment that is going to actually enable me favorably compete with the boys, given in mind, okay, the family setting, that as a girl, I have been assigned certain roles, that while the boy is going to, school to study, the girl has to stay behind to fetch water. So as a system, does it bear in mind, those differences, the cultural differences, the gender roles? And at the end of the day, however much you assign me the 1.5, for as long as the environment, the school environment was not favorable enough for me to actually compete and benefit from the same and get the same amount of education or quality, then it doesn't serve the purpose. Yeah. So I feel that we need to encompass all these aspects and draw into context what we go through, right from the family level all through, and believing that government has a role to play in this, especially when it comes to allocating resources. It's so disappointing when you get to learn how much government invests in, say, primary education, secondary education, because it does not, at the end of the day, it does not translate into the outcomes that we want to see. That despite the fact that, yes, there is this affirmative action, believe you me, the girl child is still way behind. If you talk about the menstrual aspects, how many girls, how many, young people can actually afford or access pads, sanitary pads? It is quite appalling. However much, yes, we've blown noise about it, many actors are actually trying to do something about it, but there is still a long way to go. And I feel that, government has abandoned its responsibility, that we need to establish and rethink how we define some of these aspects and how we address these things. It's just like a father abandoning their role and leaving it up to the children to, fend for themselves. And I feel that the way society has defined these things is that they are given to us as privileges, yet these are rights, and different actors have certain obligations to actually provide, rather than saying, okay, you're privileged to have this, and therefore you have to, hold on to that if you don't take it, then you get my point. Yeah. So I feel that we need to get back on the drawing board and try to establish systems and draw mechanisms that really respond to the context we are in.
Yeah. And I have to agree with you, Ruth, because what you propose are structural reforms, that we shouldn't look at this issue as on the surface of things. We should get to it from the point of we are causing a social revolution, that we are not just going to give this extra 1.5 and yet not address the structural injustice that happens in our families and our homes. But speaking about perpetration, Barbra, is that how about women who are perpetrators of women disempowerment? Because if you look at the testimonies, for example, of these girls who go to the Middle East to work, majority of them are taken there by companies or by women-led companies. But even that aside, bring it back to our context here. You look at our families, the house girls, okay, the
Maids.
house helps. Sorry for that. The house helps and the housemaids, you know, whatever injustice they go through when there's a woman in the home. All right, there is a wife to the husband who at times actually is the perpetrator of overworking this girl, of giving her all these roles. So women to women disempowerment, but also in the political sense, you look at the woman MP slot at district level. There are women who have made that slot their personal property. You know, that because the idea was that we make you a woman MP, empower you, have there 1-2 terms, then you can compete favorably against a man in, you know, any other position. But the women who have just stuck there and have blocked the opportunity to empower other women. So the argument of women and women, I don't know. We assume often than not that it's only the men who are perpetrators, but also the women could themselves be, you know, accused in this case. So what do you think?
Very interesting. You know, let me bring you back again to, you remember the Senator Gloria who stained her cloth in Kenya, that female legislator.
Yeah.
I watched that video and rewatched it again, and I learned certain things from that. That even when she stained her cloth, she was sending a message to the fellow legislators that, look here, a girl child back there is suffering. Actually, she gives an example of a lady who had, you know, she had strangled herself because she was being, because of, you know, being castigated, you know, not being helped. So let me bring it back to our context, that women are perpetrators, yet at the same point, they're the ones that you know, that are discouraging their fellow women, instead of helping them to actually make it. I'll get you your example of you know, the woman MP, that woman MP seat. Well, very interesting that it is meant to actually empower this female to get to that level, and also get down to empower the others. And it will get to the question of, why are we still not empowered? We have these perpetrators, we have these legislators at all this level. Government has done its best to even zero down in all the leadership positions. At least there is a woman in a position. Look at the youth political positions. It will still have a leader. It will still have a female position that is actually reserved for our female. Even at the position of an MP, even look at the ministers. Our ministers, most of them are even female. That means that is how far the government has gone to actually help the women develop. So if you are there as a woman MP, as a female representative somewhere, then help hold a shoulder of somebody. What can you do as a woman there? Can you empower your fellow woman? Can you speak to that one girl that will understand that, yes, I can make it? The kids out there that only need that word of, yes, you see, you are like a boy child. Your ability is the same. But what do we do most times? Rebuke them. When we see a lady who has stained her clothes, I would say, you know, she has a stained cloth. So is that what we are supposed to do as a woman, as who is a legislator? You have to empower. You don't have to fight against. But it's so unfortunate that these legislators look at these women as grooming them as threats to their political race. Also, when you get to the other aspects, the iron sheets she talks about, as mothers in the cultural setting, we are meant to actually be morally upright. We are meant to uplift shoulders of people, of our children, and be exemplary. So if you are now mentioned as somebody who has swindled or done away with something or engaged in such acts, then you're not portraying something well. You're not showing a good example to a fellow, you know, woman. And also, we have not got to understand why certain things happened. I'm not trying to look at them as the bad taint that bad image, but I'm trying to understand that yes, this happened, but did we get to realize what was the reason behind it? Okay, but we realize that also as the women, we've not got to understand, we've not met these people and asked them that, you know, this happened this way and why did it? As women, we're supposed to do this and that. So I think in line with women being the perpetrators, we have to pick up our mats and then walk in the right way, all the shoulders of those ones. If there is a hole that you feel you can actually fill, get to fill that hole. So that's all I think about.
All right. Susan, most of you have mentioned the aspect of culture and religion partly. And let's put this into context. And I was thinking, as you're speaking, I was thinking about our culture setups here in Uganda. All right? I come from Acholi, and we have Kekwar Acholi. I don't know where you come from, but there is Buganda Kingdom, there is Tor and all. And first of all, just on the surface of things, all the kings are male. Our Ruth is a male. Let alone that. A king is only seen as a successful king when they have an heir. And an heir must be a male child. I recall the joy that was in Buganda Kingdom when I think Semakokiro was, given birth to and all these things. So looking at all these cultural practices, I'm like, wow, we have such a long way to go. Like if in our cultures, and this only, okay, of course, in the West, I've tried to move away from that, in that, we saw Queen Elizabeth and all those things. But I think here in Africa, we are still a long way to go. So, no, that's culture. Religion, we have some religions that encourage polygamy. I will not mention them, but we all know them. So, and we know what comes with a woman being in a polygamous marriage. You're competing for attention, you're competing for all these things, resources. You're going to be vulnerable. You're going to be at the mercies of this man, of this, So I don't know. And that practice in itself is not about to stop. So I'm just thinking, I don't know, culture and religion, they've bogged us down.
Yes, I'll agree with you. When it comes to that, I think now it will go back to mindset. And this is how we have been nurtured. While you grow up, if it's for the Catholics, you know that the top leader is a pope. So it would be alarming and absurd if a lady one day woke up and is like, oh, I want to be the pope of the Catholic religion. Like, it has never happened. So you see that regardless of how much we are trying to look for gender equality, there are certain things that may be hard to change, which I think a certain population of us has decided to be blinded and decided to actually ignore that fact. Let's go back to culture. Just like he has mentioned, kings. Take a scenario whereby you tell a Muganda lady that, Nabachala, you need to actually become a king. They would, actually, I think they would say this one. I don't know where she was brought up from. So you see, regardless of how much we are looking at gender equality, we want to be equal, we have those setbacks that unless we actually tackle what is lacking, that's why it brings me to this point of, I don't think there is anything wrong for the king to be a man. If the next person is going to be a female and they're going to work together to actually develop that kingdom. My whole opinion is about, if we are empowering someone, is it for themselves or it's for the good of a society? I don't know if we get it right, yeah? Because we see that very many organizations have come up. They're fighting for women empowerment, they're fighting for a woman to get up there. But when you look at the center of these organizations, some of them, you find they're actually looking for their own ways of survival. Not because they're actually concerned about that young girl who is menstruating and is lacking pads, but because they're also looking for a way to get themselves out there in the world. So I think one thing that we need to work on as everyone, as an individual, is the mindset. We need to be true to ourselves. Am I actually advocating for a right for a woman to actually be empowered? Because I feel that they have gone through a lot of pain, because they are lacking social needs, because they are not having their rights as they ought to have. Or I'm actually advocating for it because I want to benefit from it. So that's what takes me back to the point that we're talking about leadership. I think you brought it in somewhere. I think we need to put our leaders accountable. They need to be accountable to us. And we need to censor these kinds of leaders in our societies. If the leader is there and they're not doing what they ought to do, it's okay for us to actually censor them out. Because people put you out there because we knew you would help this young child who is in Koboko and cannot afford to buy this pad at 1,500. You get. But if you are living in fantasy world, the dream future that you actually wanted to attain because you attain this kind of leadership, then I think we are losing it out as Ugandans. So it takes me back to the question, culture and religion. As much as we want to look for this gender equality, either we shall choose to paint a world that will never exist, or we just decide as, let's say, Ugandans today, look at this, we have decided that all positions that were there previously for men are now for female. I don't know if that's the kind of world that we would want to have, or if it's actually possible to have it.
Very impractical.
It's not actually practicable at all, because you would need to tame all these cultures, and it takes back to grooming these people that have already gone or grown old. I mean, our grandfathers, even us individuals, people who have grown up in this kind of setting. So I think we are looking for gender equality, but I think this is a dream that cannot be achieved. So let's look at gender equity. If you can be given an equal setting or an equal footing, and you can actually use it to benefit the society, then I don't see why you need to be in a superior position than a man only if it's for your own benefit. Let us only have this equity if we are going to benefit the society. Yeah, we need to be selfless in nature, which I feel most of our people are actually manipulating it for their own self-benefits, which I don't find it ideal. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. Angel, as we take a short commercial break, I'll just end with you. And the question is that, still on culture and religion, is that the argument about Pan-Africanism is that we must preserve the African values, you know, the African culture and traditions and norms and things like that. And part of our cultures is that we have these feudal systems of governance. We have the kings and, you know, the kings, the kingdoms rather. So one argument is that we must preserve our culture, but some of these culture practices are encouraging disenfranchisement of women. For example, in Toro, they had to wait for, how old was King Oyo when he became king? 2 years?
Yeah.
King Oyo had elder sisters. He had a mother. He had all these siblings around him who were much more older and who were credible for leadership at the time. But they said, no, he is the male around. Young as he is, we shall put him there and just... So the point is that culture, you know, and how it has played a role in terms of disempowering women. So as much as we love our culture, how best can we move forward in the sense that our culture doesn't come in the way of the rise of women?
So when you talk about our culture and we're looking at the leaders, first of all, I love to believe that everyone is a leader. Like, it doesn't have to be the Oyo, it doesn't have to be...
Don't get me wrong, and the viewers as well, is that when you speak about culture, there are many other cultural practices. For example, who eats what kind of food? You know, chicken was only meant for a few people. So there are all these cultural practices, all right, that perhaps you could examine in a broad sense. So
But
culture.
the world has evolved, really. The world has evolved. These days we eat gizzards, don't we? We eat grasshoppers, don't we?
We do.
Does anyone stop you from eating grasshoppers? No. So culture has evolved, and we need to appreciate that culture has evolved and it's continuing to evolve. So now we need to direct our energies and our efforts to the little loopholes that are still there. But then again, it still comes back to our cultural values as us and your individual values as a person. Take an example. You mentioned women bringing down women, which is a thing. Do you know that there's a woman that is paying a maid 60K per month? And yet that is not even the minimum wage in the nation. So that person's values are clearly not aligned with the cause that we are all moving towards. There's a friend that was reporting domestic violence. We're in a small circle, and one of us said, "Omusajja watakuba takwagala." For viewers that are watching across the world, it means if a man doesn't beat you, he doesn't like you. So you see that it's women, it's us, it comes back to the individual, really. Imagine someone that is putting this in someone's head.
Yeah.
So their cultural values, and they are evolving. We need to appreciate that fact. They're evolving. Now girls can go to school. Those days you'd not go to school. Now you can eat chicken. Now you can take on leadership roles. Now you can do all these other things. But then as the world is evolving, you as an individual, you as someone watching out there, are you also evolving? Because in as much as one say, oh, we can have a female leader, but the people, a female Kabaka, Oyo, anyone, but there's someone that will say, no, we have people that are still rigid. So it ceases to be about the culture. It comes back to the individuals.
Yeah. And these individuals are some of them women.
Yes.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Mostly, actually.
Mostly.
All right. We are due for a short commercial break. To the viewers out there, thank you for making a date with us this afternoon. We hope that our conversations are making sense to you. But above all, you can be part of this conversation. There's a comment section right below this YouTube channel. Give us your comments if you agree or disagree with any of us. Let us know. But above all, don't move a muscle. See you shortly after this commercial break.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. We are glad that you're still with us this afternoon. And Ruth, you are an entire communications lead. I mean, you're taking leadership of, I'm sure, men. I'm sure you lead men below you, right? So as we evaluate this particular day, is that what is important is that the women in the professional bit, those who are finding professional employment, what are the work policies like? For example, things like zero tolerance to sexual harassment. So what are those policies that you think are there to protect women from the vices that men who still have a patriarchal mentality believe that they should orchestrate against women? So how is it for a young woman in the professional field?
Wow, that's really very interesting. And given that I've lived the experience of working in different environments and setups, and given that at this level, this is really into the international sphere and global level that I operate. And given a background working in Africa and Uganda in particular, is that one interesting bit is that difference in how different institutions define their values and how they want to operate, and how, you know, they attach importance to the different, or to the environment within which, you know, professionals operate, because then that determines how, you know, females are treated or males are treated, and it also gets to the kind of working environment in terms of benefits, in terms of how, you know, the different professionals are treated. It gets to how, you know, employees, regardless of whether they are female, men, or male, how they get to compete favorably for, you know, the different benefits, positions. And I feel that, yes, we still have a challenge of that patriarchy, especially in the African context, where even in the professional world, that as a woman, however much you are qualified for certain positions or certain privileges, certain leaders or professionals think that it has to be a man, right? It has to be a man to lead a department. It has to be a man to get a promotion. It has to be a man to lead a project. And that is really a very big setback, because it gets to diminish the self-confidence and self-esteem and the hard work and commitment of, you know, the female professionals. That even in this age and era, we still have those inequalities, we still have those imbalances. And that is defined by our mindset and the cultural backgrounds and the family backgrounds, where, you know, one gender was elevated than the other, or because they've projected that inferiority, that maybe women are not good enough, or even if a woman did something, probably a man would have done it better. So I feel that we need, in the professional sphere, as institutions, as organizations, as leaders, as professionals, we need to redefine our values within which we, you know, operate, within which we run business, and within which we work, you know, as professionals. Because at the end of the day, we need to appreciate that, yes, females can also be good enough. Females can equally deliver as the men will deliver. And with all sincerity, that yes, hard work has to be rewarded, you know, regardless of whether I'm a female or male. And creating spaces, enabling spaces, and these can be defined by the policies, the regulations, and practices within the different organizations. That when I get into there, I feel, okay, I'm not in a toxic place. I feel I am valued for the work that I deliver. I feel that I'm not discriminated basing on my gender. I feel that my work is appreciated because of what I have delivered according to the expectations of, you know, what I'm supposed to do. So we still have a challenge that, yes, again, different institutions, some institutions have policies, but these are cosmetic, because yes, they are in place for purposes of filing and, you know, but these are not implemented. Right? Because we see many women talking about toxic environments where we have cases of sexual harassment, where, you know, certain men feel that for a woman to qualify for something good, they have to give a part of themselves. They have to, you know, to part with something. So this is something that is seldom talked about, but it's high time we actually talked about it. And I would appreciate if there's actually an independent show to actually talk about this, because so many people, especially the emerging professionals, are suffering out there. It's a big challenge, and it's hindering progress as far as the professional aspect is concerned. And we are not getting the best out of the females. That is why you see when you go to boardrooms, these are male dominated. Why? Is it that there are no qualifying women? Okay. We have different departments and institutions, agencies, ministries. We have males, but that doesn't mean that we do not have the females that actually qualify. So it gets down to these foundational aspects, the culture, the family, even the systems themselves, that we have those structural injustices that are actually affecting women from getting up. And really, I feel that as women, we are our own enemies of progress, because we are not talking about these things. We are not openly supporting our fellow women. That if one really was confident enough or brave enough to talk about these things, we are instead covering it up, we are bringing them up, we are mocking them. But I feel that, yes, we need to come up and redefine how we want to relate with each other as women, to redefine how we want to support each other, because these are real issues that need to be addressed.
Wow, amazing. Barbra, I was reading your profile and I came across the part that you belong to the NRM Youth League. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So the question is that, you know, for the young girl child out there who is trying to find their footing as a leader, as a political leader, I don't know, how is the road like? How is the path towards political rise? I don't know. Could you share with us your experience?
Well, this is quite amazing.
Yeah. Because what we hear is that also in the political circles there are vultures, you know, who will look forward to taking advantage of, you know, the young girls like you, you know. I mean, if you want my support for this position, you know, I don't know, how is it like?
Well, it's just absurd that such is happening. And I will not be afraid, because it is one of the things that we need to fight against. It's actually one of the things that I'm trying to rise up and fight against and say, yes, we are rising up in these positions, just like my sister said, but also we need to be protected. Our dignity needs to be intact. I remember when I first contested as the female youth councillor 5 of Omoro district under the NRM ticket. Of course, I faced such challenges as well. I mean, I wouldn't mention names here, but someone at the size of your father would actually come to you, ask for your hand in marriage, and you're asking yourself questions of, how will I manage this person? Okay, how will I even introduce him to my father as my husband to be? It's very ashaming. And I remember oftentimes I would pose a question to them, that assuming we get something, like we get to engage a lot with each other, and all of a sudden it doesn't work out for us. And I'm very sure that you have a son that is probably of my age, and then gets to bring me to you and introduce you as the lady I want to marry. What becomes of it? So oftentimes the response, they would shy away, and then they would not continue with the process. Anyways, what I'm trying to bring about is, I've realized that this is happening to not only one, not two, but to very many girl child out there who is trying to groom, who is trying to grow in the political arena. So as, like I said, I posted that we need the men. We need the men to support us emotionally. We need the men to guide us and say, yes, you are a girl child. Yes, you are beautifully and wonderfully made, but you can make it there. But not the men to torture us, not the men to harass us. You know, it is quite embarrassing when somebody approaches you. At some point, I ask myself questions of, have I been abandoned by God? Because I mean, someone of the size of your father, or even great-grandfather coming to you is literally an ancestor.
It's disgusting, yeah.
You know, it's very disgusting. All in the names of, I will want to finance you, I want to do this, A, B, C, D, Z, blah, blah. So I look forward to actually speaking to the young to the young girls there in the political arena and moving a campaign of, we do not need your money, we do not need this, but you know what? We need our voice, and we need your emotional support. Not just to torture us, but to help elevate us to another level. I'll give you an example. One of them came to me and approached me and said, you know, young girl, we are going to fight you. But I mean, was it about fighting? Or about, what if that person, that random person, held my hand and said, you know what, my daughter, I am going to take you to another level. You only need to do this. You only need to do this. Maybe in the agriculture, you know, our president, His Excellency, has always said that we need to venture into the agricultural sector in order to get empowered. So as a young person, maybe probably, okay, what is your plan? I have this. Okay, I can do this for you. Rather than fighting me. So that is not happening to to a few section of ladies, but it's happening even to the ladies who have made it. I remember recently there was an election that was about to take place. That was the Women's League, if you heard about it. So I rise up and, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I think I want to contest for this election. Yeah, I get, like you said, we are always we are always discouraged by our fellow ladies. You know, a young girl makes a comment and says, you know, women do great up there to get to the position. So if you must contest in this such a position, then you have to zero down and stop at maybe sub-county level. That is the best. That's how far you can go. Because if you're to climb to greater heights, then you'll need a man that is very wealthy in this country. And I'm like, no, I think I can make it. But anyway, unfortunately, we never had the election. So what I'm trying to say is that we are capable, we are able, and we love the men. But it has made us to zero down to say that men are trash, men are harsh.
Okay. Let me hear what Susan thinks. Susan, you're a student at UCU. And I know that some universities have a zero tolerance to sexual harassment. I don't know, what is the policy like for a student, for a female student going through an education system in Uganda? We have had this notion of sex for marks, all right? But I don't want to vindicate the women in this case. There are students who actually lure lecturers into having sex with them because they know that they probably don't have the time to attend class, so they're trying to find an easy way around maybe university education. So they will ideally, because men are human beings, all right? They get tempted. If you're coming to class and then you're in this short mini skirt, I'm only natural. I want to get lured and get attracted and, you know, and perhaps attempt to maybe, you know, persuade you. So the argument here is that education, the education system, what is the environment like? All right? Issues around sex for marks. Is it only the lecturers who are the perpetrators, or even our female students at times lure our lecturers, like I have said? So a girl going through advanced levels of education, how is it like?
Well, thank you about that question. Now, I'll first begin with the policies. Well, in our universities, we actually have policies that are put in place to protect the girl child from being sexually harassed. That if at all anything actually happened to you, you can have a remedy to that cause. But, well, getting back to you where you said actually girls can also play a role in actually being the promoters, it will take me back to morals and values that we ought to have as individuals. I think we as individuals need to put our standards very high. I mean, you don't have to lower yourself to get good grades. You need to actually work for the good grades for you to attain them. So for you failing to dress appropriately, I'm not saying it should be a reason for actually a male lecturer to be tempted, because you ought also to
Control
respect
yourself.
yourself. So I think it goes back to us. Everyone has a role to play. Even if this lady came to you, you have values that are attached to you as a lecturer. You have policies that govern you. You are not supposed to have sex with a lady simply because you must give them marks. Even if they have come to you, right? A girl is actually supposed to work for what they want. So I think it goes back to us. What are we doing to tame down these vices? Are we actually promoting them? When your friend comes and tells you, look here, I've gotten a retake in this, I don't know what to do. Are you the very person that advises them, look here, this can actually be done, and you just need to go talk to the lecturer and it will be sorted? Or you're the person who actually encourages your friend, look here, retakes are normal, but this can be done. I can help you with your research. We can work things out and you actually get good grades. You see, approaches to the different problems actually matter in these situations. So we should not look at these policies and leave them there plainly. Are we going back to, are we using the counseling services that are in place? The universities, we have counseling and guidance facilities that are put in place. Are we opening up as the females who are being tortured? If your classmate, you see, we are putting on a level of even lecturers, but we have our own classmates. You are maybe not doing better in this course unit, and this male friend will tell you, oh, hey, come to my room for a discussion, and you feel it is actually a class discussion.
Okay, but just Susan, perhaps we could dig deeper into this particular argument, because what we're discussing is that a lecturer and a student have a fiduciary relationship, right? That the lecturer has a responsibility to protect this particular, student. But you know that more often than not, even the female lecturers have abused the male students. So as you analyze, can we look at both sides of the coin? That
Yes.
there are also those girls who will lure a male student into their rooms and try to lure them into sexual intercourse. So it is a two-way street, at least from what I've discovered over time.
Yes, it is a two-way street, and that's why we need to have strict measures upon it, right? I don't believe that we should actually let them be. We should not let these situations be taken for granted. We have had it over time that people are actually being sexually harassed. But what is that extra thing that we are doing? Yes, we have had advocacy. We have told these male people, do not actually violate the girl. We have told the female, even the men can be vulnerable. So do not manipulate them into it. So what is that extra thing that we are doing? I think we need to implement our laws that are in place. That is one thing that is lacking. And it also goes back to openness. Yeah. I will not discover that you have actually been violated if you do not open up. So I think it's one thing that is lacking, because at the end of it all, well, as we agree to the fact that these people are actually threatened to come out because maybe they've told you if you open up, you're never going to leave campus. So they end up not opening up. But protection can be granted. Yes, we have leaders, we have had organizations that actually help these people that are in such a situation. So I think it goes back to individuals. If you've been affected, open up and let the stakeholders, now it takes me back to stakeholders. Stakeholders take a major role when it comes to implementation of this, because you are the people there. Now someone will ask, what happens if actually the stakeholder is the one doing the act? You get? It's a little bit tricky because the person you're going to report to is the same person that is sexually harassing the other person. So that goes back to, what people are we putting in these positions? Are they really people of moral upbringing, or we are actually putting the perpetrators in these offices? And the virus will continue to grow and grow. So I think it goes back to, let the people that are actually in these spaces be checked. Yeah, let us have checks and balances on these people. how often we actually come and check their premises, look at the reports. Do we have surveillance cameras in their premises? Because if you are actually helping in sexual harassment, I don't think there need to be, of course, there is a right to privacy, right? You don't have to disclose the person that you have dealt with. But do we have checks and balances on these stakeholders that are actually in these organizations? Because we may be blinded by the fact that they are trying to help, yet at the end of it all, they may be the perpetrators. So I think we need to work on the implementation of the laws that we have in place. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Angel, two things for me. One is that this year's theme of International Women's Day is around technology, innovation. You work for an innovative organization, the Boda, that has capitalized on technology to offer services, all right? So I don't know, what does this day mean to you as someone who is tech savvy, as someone who is working in an organization that, like I said, tries to use technology to offer a service? But two is that your comment regarding, because like I said earlier on, I am a man, and we are human beings, we have feelings, we have emotions. So we have seen all these cases of rape and these cases of sexual harassment and etc., which I don't think we should condone at all. But then how about the perspective of the women who raise the appetite of these men? You see a woman dressed in a way that, you would need to be abnormal not to get attracted to her. You see, and I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a layman out there who is not perhaps maybe exposed and things like that, and sees a girl dressed in the way they're dressed. I don't know. They will perhaps misconstrue that, oh, this could be a green light for me to actually, indulge. So I don't know. It's a bit tricky.
Like you said, it's a bit tricky. I don't want to be on the side of, but why do the ladies dress like that? Because I'll be supporting the whole rape culture and all. But it's really tricky, and that goes two-way. Really, it really goes two-way. The ladies need to have appropriate dressing, but also what is on a man that tempts him to want to sleep with a girl after they've seen them. Like, you've just seen someone, and for you, that is what is in your head. There's a problem with the male gender. On that note, we are praying for them.
No, it is just being honest.
No, it's being honest, but don't think about it. Like, you've seen a girl, and for you, in your head.
But you know that men are optic driven. That a man will probably, approach a girl because of the optics they've seen. Oh, she looks nice. Oh, she has this. Oh, blah, 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 blah. So men are optic driven, and that is just nature as it is. So
the optic driven thing was just put in the minds of these men. It's not who they are. Wow. It was just put in their minds to, oh, you're optic driven. Because when they're getting married, look at all the marriage material girls. They're not so, oh my God, optic.
No, because look at how society. because Angel, look at how society is. For example, usually the responsibility to vibe or to initiate anything is left on the man, right? And most times, even before a man gets to listen to, oh wow, Angel, beyond being beautiful, she's actually very intelligent, all right? Even before I listen to your views, to your wild views about many things, what will lure me towards you is, first of all, how does she look? And that, you cannot take it away from it. That's how society is. That a man will approach you on the principle of fact that of how you look, they find you attractive, all right? So that could be a problem, yes, true, but it is a reality of the day. So are we going to give it a cold shoulder, or are we going to address the issue?
No, it's a problem because it has set beauty standards. Girls are now bleaching, girls are now wearing human hair, girls are, don't they even steal these wigs? I don't know, like, girls are doing extreme things to meet the beauty standards that have been set by men.
Yeah.
I actually tell my friends, if a man feels intimidated by the fact that you're so brainy, or what that man should stay away from you, because that is what they should actually look for in a
That's
lady.
right.
What does she bring to the table? You know, having a beautiful woman that can't think is a problem.
Because we have seen videos of this year, it has just been slaps. Women slapping fellow women. So I don't know. I mean, all because we are saying that men are the perpetrators of all this domestic violence. But then in the recent past, we have seen videos of women ascending over fellow women for whatever reason. So I don't know. As you try to make this about the men, do you think the women also need that psychological transformation? That you don't need to fight for a man. That if a man sees you worthy, then he'll actually prioritize you. That you don't need to torture, this young girl because your boyfriend maybe I don't know, found her attractive. I don't know.
There's a challenge of information overload today. There's
Okay.
a lot of data that people are consuming. I'm in the content industry, communications, so there's a lot of content out there that people are taking in, and people are seeing all sorts of things, surgery, bleaching, and all those things, and women are going ahead to do this to impress the men. So we need to play our individual roles. One is by setting an example, be as natural as you can be, really. And yeah, but we also need to pray, because this issue, the slaps, they've been there. We've seen them this year. Everyone was violent. So we need to pray for the nation, really. And be, as parents, be very considerate about what our children are consuming. Because if you're letting a child watch very crazy things at the age of 7, so they're going to start indulging by the age of 15, 20, which is not a good thing. And there's a lot of sex work today on the streets. So I think that also has something that it resonates with the whole making men think that, oh, when you're in a short skirt, you want. Because you see, there's on the streets. I can't mention some streets, but it's a thing that has started lately, a lot of sex work. So we need to, those communities need to organize their people and see how to do their work, because gender equality and what they say, sex work is work these days. So
Okay. Point number 2 is that you look at technology, innovation, ICT. It evolved from the point of engineering. Engineering in the past was seen as a masculine sort of profession. You look at the Albert Einsteins. I mean, all those scientists, all those engineers of those days were actually male dominated. So because this year's theme, like I said, is around innovation and technology. So as engineering evolves, is it becoming more sophisticated, or is it becoming more liberal to actually accommodate even the women like yourself who are working for example, Boda? So the question is, women in IT, how is the field like? Is it open? Is it welcoming? Or are there challenges that need to be addressed?
Well, from a personal example, I'm an only girl on a team of quite a number of men.
Really?
When I joined the team, someone told me, I've given you 1 week. I remember it was so sad. It was so heartbreaking. I actually cried. So I don't want to say it's easy, because you're working with guys and all they think about is, like, you know how there's not so much, so all they think about is work. You as a lady, you have to position yourself for the future. You have interests, you have family, you have so much. As the world is it's getting liberal, there are challenges there and they cannot be ignored. But also, Safe Boda is very it has supported women, because they're even training women to ride borders and join the tech world, because you have to have an application on your phone. So instead of sitting home and waiting for your man, if you can ride a border, they're willing to support. And then we have women on the top leadership roles. So it's a very inclusive environment, and so are very many tech industries today. So we appreciate where the future is going.
Yeah, wow, thank you. Ruth, the aspect of rights of women, and particularly I want to focus on the right to health, maternal health and things like that. I read somewhere that over 15 women die every day giving birth in Uganda. And that's appalling. That's a very disturbing statistic. So, as we discuss the rights of women, maternal health, the right to reproductive health services, the right to guidance and counseling, that is a very fundamental aspect of the woman evolution. So, the health rights of women, how do we stand as a country?
Well, like you highlight, yes, there's still a problem, but then we appreciate that there has been government efforts to reduce maternal and child death, because yes, we see there's investment in the health sector by government, and yes, we've seen some improvements, and yes, we see that, of course, other stakeholders, other actors have also come to complement the work of government. But yes, again, we need to sit down and talk about the structural kind of issues related to the health sector, on top of, the investment and government priority as far as allocation of these resources is concerned. That takes me to national budgeting. Again, it's the question that always lingers in my mind is, where are government priorities? What are we funding most? Because if you make an analysis of, the health budget vis-a-vis other sectors like defense, like, agriculture, like education, and we know that we cannot thrive in a community or in a country where, the health is appalling, right? First, we need healthy lives before we can even talk about sustainable development, economic development, and all the other aspects. So I feel that, yes, there's quite imbalances in the health sector. And I feel that as government, it's overwhelmed by the demand and the current challenges that we have in the health sector, that, again, I put it on our leaders in terms of, their role and obligation when it gets to these spaces. How they get to negotiate, how they get to advocate and lobby as far as these sectors is concerned, especially the health sector. That, yes, again, we are being let down by the different leaders, that health is not being given, that due attention, that we can't be in a country, in an era where we do not have drugs in hospitals, we do not have drugs in health centers. And this is a responsibility of government to ensure that they are providing quality health services. And when it comes to regional imbalances, especially where you see some resources are not reaching certain places, that escalates the problem. And when we have leaders who are snoring on the job, it even makes things worse, that leaders are not talking about these things. Leaders' priorities are somewhere else. We're only thinking about our stomachs, what we can put, on our own tables, rather than the people that we represent. And I feel that Women's Day is an opportunity to talk about these things, to remind ourselves on some of these issues, most pressing needs that we need to address as a country. If you talk about maternal health, child health, it's something that we need to give due attention, right from, resource allocation, right from the systems, the structures, and getting down to these women. I feel some of these resources are misredirected to things that are not important, right? Because if mothers are dying, and yet we feel that, yes, mothers are the pillars of our society, because, given the reproduction roles and ensuring that, yes, they are nurturing the nation, we need to do more. And I really place it on our leaders, because they are in these positions to actually advocate for the people that they've left behind. And also rethinking our government priorities. Because if you do not have drugs, or if you are not concerned by the lack of drugs in hospitals, then do you have your citizens at heart? You know, that we are only preoccupied with wars outside, and we are not thinking about the health of our citizens. So yes, it is, we still have a long way to go, as much as yes, we've made considerable effort and progress as far as addressing these issues is concerned. And I have to appreciate the role of development partners that have really come in to lend a hand and support, you know, amidst the scarcity. But I'm really saddened when I think about the high rate of corruption, you know, that at some point I feel we shouldn't be where we are, because with the existing resources, this should be enough to get us somewhere. But if we have tendencies of corruption and people swindling even the little that is there, you know, again, I make reference to Karamoja and the recent saga. Imagine if those iron sheets were actually delivered to the intended beneficiaries. That would make a difference. If you have lack of drugs, actually when you go to the records, NMS will show you that they've delivered these drugs. Ministry of Health will tell you that, okay, we allocated so much for drugs. But when you get down to, you know, the supply chain, these drugs are not getting to where they are. So it gets down to the morals and values of our society as individuals, as we need to give, we need to uphold self-accountability and not think about ourselves as individuals, but the people around us, and what that would mean for all of us and development.
All right, fair enough. Our time is fast spent, but there's only one thing that I want us to do before we wrap this up. Of course, I'll give you time to give us your parting shots, but Barbra, the aspect of decision making. Take an example of the NSSF probe, and when they arraigned the board members before the parliamentary committee, largely around 90% of the members of that board were actually male, if not all of them. I am not so sure, but 90% or more were male. So that shows that the decision making in so many of these private sector or even government, quasi-government institutions is still wanting. So I don't know, how do we improve the participation of women in terms of decision making, both in government and in the private sector?
Simple. You just have to you make the environment accommodative for the women. We look at the aspect of employment, just as we have been discussing, that very many women are cut short simply because of the gender. Being a woman, she's subjected to a number of issues, so she can't actually attain some positions. And when you look at NSSF itself, it is a security, it's a surety kind of, where somebody is going to save something. So if I'm not employed, what am I saving? That means I'm not going to save anything. So then if the women are not there in the employment, so let us boost the women, let us model them, and let us make the environment accommodative for the women to be in the employment sector. So then let us put a representative for them, let them be represented. Of course, it is to be on merit. It's not that because we deserve to be equal, or the equity has to prevail here, and you're going to be employed because you're not able. As the women, we wake up, let's wake up and do all that we can do in our sector. And then, I mean, if you've excelled, you can be given a position somewhere. So the women have to wake up, they have to do all they can, all to carry up the mantle, to believe in themselves that yes, I can make it. In that they will also work hard in everything that they do to also be equated at the level of the men. So yes, for the perpetrators and the NSSF being the males, the inclusivity has to prevail, because our constitution talks about the equality. So then if we are equal, then why are we not having the women there? Is it because they cannot make such laws? Is it because they cannot do as the men can do? No, they have to put into consideration that, and then the women have to be brought on board. That is my simple.
All right. Friends, my time is fast spent, but I'll give you a minute each to give us your parting shots. And I'll begin with Susan as I go back towards Angel, just in a minute.
Well, what I can say, it is not yet over until it's over. We are the change that we actually desire. So it's upon us as ladies, as we are celebrating International Women's Day. Let us focus. Let us redefine our standards. Yes, we can be the change makers.
Yes, Barbara.
In 2011, Barack Obama said that the women are actually needed most in the economy so that we can actually grow. Today, we forgive the men and we accept to work with them. They're no longer trash if they accept not to be harsh. We shall move with them. A happy Women's Day.
Wow, interesting.
Uganda's context makes it a timely conversation to talk about women empowerment, to talk about gender equality. And this is not a one-day conversation, but let's get back to our values. Let's get back to the drawing board to ensure that we are involving everyone, we are leaving no one behind, and ensure that this becomes a collaborative conversation, becomes an evolving conversation to ensure that we attain the equality that we want to see, to ensure that we are empowering all the women, we're empowering all the girls. And with this, I wish you all a happy Women's Day.
Yes, Angel.
To the women out there, happy Women's Day. I love you all. You know, we're struggling with a society where people don't feel loved. So if you feel anything out there, you're struggling with something, just know there's someone that cares about you and loves you, someone is praying for you. And I encourage women to not compromise on anything. Go get that degree, go apply for that job, do that job, because in society today, we see women compromising on their future, and yet when a man is compromising, he'll be like, I'll only go to the bar on the weekend with the boys to save my marriage. But the woman, I'll not do this degree to save my marriage. So women out there, you can do all these things. Happy Women's Day.
Wow. Friends, thank you. Thank you, Angel, Ruth, Barbara, and Susan for sparing the time to put into perspective what this day, 8th of March, means to us as a country, but also to the women out there, but also to the men who should be brought on the table of conversation. Well, I began by quoting Samora Machel. I'll end by quoting Gracia Marcel, who happened to be a first lady in two countries, Mozambique and South Africa. She said that if women don't like how the table is set, they should change the table setting. Well, that brings us to the end of this conversation on this particular episode of the Youth Roundtable. Thank you for making a date with us this afternoon. Until next week, same time, same place, have a lovely afternoon.